Good evening, everyone. How you all doing? Welcome to a live stream from us here at the Big Rab Show team. Now, as promised, for those of you who caught the preview live stream yesterday, we're going to be talking about the UK Championships. And for those of you who haven't seen it yet, there's been a little bit of an announcement that's caused quite a stir here, especially for the band scene in Northern Ireland. The UK Championships are scheduled to take place in Edinburgh, and that's great, but it will be held on the 12th of July. So hence the title of this live stream, because that's quite a significant date for quite a number of people here. So first of all, before we get into the story itself, I do want to welcome everyone to watching. Thank you. Please do drop in your comments. If you do have any questions, queries, anything like that, we will be having guests joining us throughout the stream. And we'll be talking about something. We have some information here from headquarters, from the board of directors and stuff and that to share with you tonight. So please do drop us a comment in if you have any queries or comments of that about the current situation. So the UK Championships itself, following the announcement that it was going to be held in Edinburgh, that was a shock in one regard because, well, we now know that that major championship will no longer be held here in Northern Ireland, but also the date itself is significant for a good number of reasons. And I wanted to invite on to the show at this point David Scott, who can tell us all about why this date of the 12th of July is significant for folks here. So, David, welcome to the show.
Hello, Rob. How are you doing? And thanks for inviting me on this evening.
You're very welcome. Thank you for joining us. So the reason I'm bringing you on is because I believe, are you in your own role in your day job, you're an education officer for the Orange Order. Would that be right?
That's right. I do that on a day-to-day basis, Rob. So the role is about trying to inform and educate people a wee bit more about the tradition associated with Orangeism in Ireland, and I did globally as well.
Now, we're keenly aware of the political sensitivities around this date and everything, and we're not in the business of getting into the politics of it, but we do want to put across that this date is significant to people. Can you explain why?
Well, I suppose the first thing, my initial reaction when I heard the news was, I suppose, in a sense, it was a bit of a shock, and then it became a bit of a disappointment. And then I thought about the logistics of how that might affect bands in Northern Ireland. And I suppose it's maybe a bit of an understatement to say that I can understand to some degree how this decision has come about. And maybe folks' unawareness of the importance of the date and how it may affect bands here in Northern Ireland. So the 12th of July, in terms of Northern Ireland cultural life, it's not just about the parading or the marching or processing, as some people might try to interpret, and maybe that is the general perception by the general public, not only in Northern Ireland, but more so across the island of Ireland and UK based. The 12th of July is about, first of all, principally, it's one of the largest cultural festivals in Europe. And to some degree, and it's very hard to determine numbers, it's very difficult to do that simply because it changes year on year and it literally comes down to the weather here in Northern Ireland. But if it's a really good day on the 12th day of July, you will have thousands of people participating in this cultural festival. And it's not just solely about culture, it's principally about a celebration of faith. And that's the core of what the 12th of July is all about. It's majority of folk involved would be the Protestant community. And it's about a celebration in terms of the constitutional position following the Battle of the Boyne in 1690. So it's primarily faith, and then the cultural heritage of the people celebrated thereafter. And I was trying to make a reference there to numbers involved. As I say, it's hard to determine, but perhaps across the 18 venues of the 12th of July celebrations here in Northern Ireland, there could be up to a maximum of 750,000 people either participating or spectating at the 12th of July venue somewhere across Northern Ireland. So I think that's the size and the scale of it.
They are. It's really quite significant then in that regard. I didn't realise it was as big as that. Wow. So obviously we're a piping show. We are piping focused, and we know a good number of our pipe bands will have duties to do that day. A lot of them are associated with various lodges and things, so we'll have other commitments that day. Have you any idea on the scale of that? How many bands do you think would be involved in the 12th and everything?
So I think to put it into context, Rob, it'd be useful maybe for me just to let your viewers and listeners maybe have a wee bit more of a background information. And I think what maybe is understood by a number of organisations throughout Northern Ireland and broader afield is the close connectivity of the pipe band movement and the loyal orders. So, for example, I have been inclined to say there would be an unwritten gentleman's agreement that many pipe bands, in fact, I would say the majority of pipe bands in Northern Ireland would possibly rehearse or practice in an Orange Hall. And some Orange lodges, they're the custodians of the Orange Hall, they're the trustees of the property, and they're at liberty to allow whoever they like into the use of their premises. So by the nature of the organisation, that is the Orange Order, they will need the use of musical accompaniment on their parading days, for example, the 12th of July. And so there'll be like an unwritten agreement or a nod or a wink or a gentleman's handshake that, if we give you the use of the hall, that is, you the band, if we give you the band the use of the hall to practice, rehearse, to have your rehearsals in preparation for whatever you do, it'd be good if you could accompany us on the likes of the 12th of July that we're speaking about now. So I think that's the first thing to put into the mix to help our visitors overseas understand the quandary that I believe this decision is going to put some of our bands in. So in terms of the numbers, numerically speaking, I had a brief look today at the RSPBA and I website. I see there's a list of approximately 1995 bands. Many are inactive, of course, but I think from memory there's about 35 active bands. And I was trying to do a bit of a guesstimate. Now, it's not an exact science, Rob, but I think on a guesstimate, there would possibly be, out of those 35 bands, I would suspect 20 to 25 of those bands would be in some way associated with an Orange Hall or the Orange tradition and would be making use of the Orange Hall facilities. So I think that's the sort of number of bands we're probably speaking about.
I see, yeah. So the announcement itself then with this date, I think it'd be fair to say has put a lot of bands here then in this side of the Irish Sea in a very difficult position then. Yeah.
There's no doubt about that. And I was thinking about this as well. And I think it'd be fair for me to say as well, Rob, that I'm not on here to criticise or condemn the RSPBA, because I understand the difficulty that they're faced with, because the current economic climate, the limited funds available to maybe councils or whatever the borough or whatever it may be, the organising body, to make that bid process. So they're limited in their choice potentially as to number one, who can afford to run a competition, who can host it, and the logistics around that. So that's the first thing to say. But I think whenever I heard the announcement, I automatically thought of the predicament that many of our bands are going to be in, because you've got that commitment or that annual traditional commitment of a band accompanying an Orange Lodge on their 12th of July parade. But alternatively, the further you go up the grades into maybe potentially grade 3, grade 2, or even into grade 1, I think the further you go up the grade, there would probably be more of a mixed band, as in those who would be loyal to the commitment made to the Orange Hall. And there are those within the band who maybe don't fully understand and would be busting keen to get to Edinburgh on the 12th day of July, yet the other half of the band would feel that commitment and to be loyal to the lodge that hosts them throughout the winter time and into the springtime for the rehearsals. So I think this does put a bit of a predicament. And like, I'm talking here mostly about bands, but let's forget about the drum majors and the very large supporting base that exists here in Northern Ireland for the pipe band tradition. There are many people who go along to the 12th of July, following the pipe band movement. You will regularly see those people around many of the rings and arenas listening to and supporting their local pipe band. So I think it is a bit of a predicament.
It is, absolutely. But David, thank you so much for joining us on the show and kind of communicating the importance of that date to many people here. I really do appreciate it. I think you're actually heading for a bit of a dinner now. You're at a bit of a swanky location there. Tree and all behind me.
You can probably see a Christmas tree behind me there, Rob. So yeah, there's a bit of beef waiting on me.
There you go. Good man. Well, enjoy yourself and Merry Christmas, David. Thank you for joining us.
And Happy Christmas to you, and thanks for the opportunity.
Not a problem. Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye-bye.
There you are. A massive thank you to David Scott for joining us here. So I know that there are a lot of political sensitivities around this. All right, we're not ignorant to that fact. But whenever we seen the announcement of the date itself, it did make us draw a breath going, oh, that's quite a significant date. And we reached out to RSPBA headquarters themselves. We wanted to see if they could send a representative from the board of directors to talk to us here tonight on the Big Rab Show. Now, what normally happens is we would normally send an email into headquarters and we would never get anything back. However, this time round, we have emailed headquarters as usual to get a statement and things like that, or a representative. And we now have a statement from our board of directors. So, if Andrew's in the back room there, Andrew, can we have that statement up on screen and we'll just have a brief look at what we received from our board of directors in relation to this. Okay, here we go, yeah. So this is the email I received then from headquarters earlier today. Hi Rab, discussions on securing new promoters never stops. The work to secure competition dates for 2025 season is still active as the British Major Championship has not been confirmed yet. Yes, we are waiting on our 5th date. Okay, moving on. The UK Pipe Band Championship was discussed at the last Board of Directors meeting on the 7th of December, where a vote by the directors was passed by a majority motion. Okay, moving on. During that discussion, it was explained that this date was the only date available from the host promoter, but in moving forward, there would be other dates, months to consider for future years. That's another interesting point right there. So the board of directors are aware of time constraints where bands need to know final dates and venues in order to plan for the 2025 season. So we've talked about that on the show, but a need to arrange for travel arrangements and such. So they're making reference to this here. The RSPBA also need to confirm these so as to inform adjudicators of the requirements for each venue, as with stewards, compilers, directors. Okay. The desire to fill the Major Pipe Band Championship goes on. Venues and dates remain and what is on offer at the moment, but we are all looking for the ideal competing season where there will be a good spread of dates throughout the year. Wishing yourselves and all pipers and drummers and drum majors a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Kind regards. So there you are. That's the statement that we got from the Board of Directors earlier today. Now, I have to say, I was well impressed, to be honest, that we got any kind of representation at all. We did ask for a rep from the Board of Directors to join us here tonight. Unfortunately, no one was available because, let's face it, it was very short notice, I have to say. But it was great to see that statement, I have to say. There was a couple of interesting points, however, that I do want to discuss a little bit further. And thankfully, I have thanks, Andrew. If you want to put it back on the screen there, I'll walk you through them here. The first one then is about that the UKs were discussed at the last Board of Directors meeting and a vote was passed by a majority motion. I want you to keep that in mind. And then the next one then is, that it was explained that this was the only date available from the host promoter. So that's what landed us in the situation with having the competition on the 12th of July. So I think at this point now, thankfully, we have a couple of representatives from the RSPBA Northern Ireland branch. We have Chairperson Alistair Patterson and Press Officer Erin McElwain. Hello, Alistair and Erin. How are you doing, folks?
Good evening, Rob. How are we doing?
The best. Well, first of all, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy time at this time of year, the holidays, to join us here to talk about this. I'm sure, I don't know if you've seen the chat I had with David Scott earlier talking about that date, but clearly both of you would be aware that the 12th of July would be a significant date. Would that be right, Alistair?
Yeah, look, in fairness, let's be honest, for me personally, and this is me speaking personally, it's a very important date. It's a very important date in my calendar. That's not me talking as chairman of the Northern Ireland branch. That's me talking yourself, as Alistair Patterson. So it is extremely important to me. Look, the situation we're in. Yeah, thankfully, I got a bit of a pre-warning that it was coming. Um, but look, the decision to hold it on that particular date, yeah, did come as a bit of a shock, to be honest. Particularly given, the sensitivities and different things here in Northern Ireland. Look, let's be honest, not every piper or drummer will be at the 12th of July.
Yeah.
They might have something else now to go to, or they do have something else to go to on the 12th of July, so they do have another alternative. But for the vast majority, and I did hear what David Scott was saying, listening carefully, and the vast majority of that is correct in the fact that there's probably 80% of our players that this could have an impact on, as in here in Northern Ireland. But look, it's here. It's happening. Decision has been taken, whether people like it or we don't like it, and that's where we are. And
That's it indeed.
We're just going to have to deal with it at this minute in time.
Yeah. So on that email, that statement that we got from our board of directors, I said there was a couple of interesting points there. And the first one being that it was put through with majority rule. And I know a lot of the folks here in Northern Ireland were asking, did anybody mention about the date around the table? And I think at this point, probably our directors from Northern Ireland would have had a say here. Alistair, would that have been the case?
Most definitely. Look, I'm aware that it certainly was talked about. There was a vote taken. I don't know what the numbers were. I'm sure we'll see at some stage whenever minutes come out. But look, yes, it was a majority decision. But to be honest, not everybody was in favour. And that includes people from other areas as well. I think, look, one of the key things, and I know we have the 12th of July issue, but I think there's a bigger thing that needs to be actually looked at and talked about here. This is actually holiday time. Yes. Traditionally, for a lot of people, this is holiday season. Yes. So there's people, like, I know I had contact from one person yesterday, more or less saying that they were doing the All-Ireland in Edinburgh Square. 2 days later, they were jumping on a plane and they were disappearing for 10 days. They're now caught in that quandary that literally they're going, do I look to try and change this holiday, or am I still going abroad for 10 days? Now, I know if I was probably them, I'd be going abroad for 10 days as well, but if I was in that position. But that wouldn't be the case for me. But anyway, I think that's the other side. And let's even look at it from, even the Scottish perspective. And this is where this is coming from. The 12th of July doesn't have the same significance to those who are probably the majority, clearly, that was on the board of directors. Doesn't have the same significance, doesn't have the same impact, doesn't go that far for them. But equally, their schools, like ours, finish at the end of June. And again, it's that thing, there's usually always a competition in Scotland and around that first Saturday in July as well, which is usually a pretty well attended event in years gone by. And then again, they're off for a couple of weeks because they don't normally traditionally have anything such as a major, which has been there standing for a long time, as in Dumbarton at the end of July. So I think there's a number of issues, and it feels as if we've really compacted our season now as well. That's also what I'm looking at, because I'm more focused on what we're doing here in Northern Ireland, and what we're trying to do, and the season that we're trying to put together. To be honest, if any of the bands want to come to Edinburgh Square on the Saturday before to get a warm-up before that major championships, they're more than welcome. I'd be delighted to see them in Edinburgh Square.
There you are, I was going to talk to Aaron about the All-Ireland. I'm really excited about that for sure. So, Aaron, I'm glad we get into what's traditionally known as the mid-season break. You're pretty good with your stats and figures and stuff, so I'm glad you joined this. In my memory in pipe bands, this has always been kind of the mid-season break, where bands get a bit of a reset. You get a week of chilling out, a week back to band practice, maybe start new chanters, new reads, and then you have a week to play them in before you're back again. Can you tell me, has this been the case? Like, is this the first time we'll see a contest during this fortnight?
Well, certainly from a Northern Ireland branch perspective, we're very much aware of of the local parading calendar, and that forms part of the team discussions at the start of the year.
Yeah.
And obviously, the executive under Alistair's chairmanship engages fully with the pipe majors and leading drummers of our bands across Northern Ireland by convening specific meetings with them rather than the band secretaries that would be the normal branch meetings. So he is able to then get a real feel for what do our bands want as a local calendar. And obviously, we're very much aware that not everybody does take part in the Battle of the Boyne commemorations. And not everybody takes part in the Royal Black Preceptories Black Saturday parades at the end of August. But we're very much aware that a lot of our bands do have connections. So those things are really not sort of brought in the same way that when the contest administrator is looking at trying to find a date for the solos around sort of April time, we got to be conscious of Easter moving each year and when's the best time, and then availability with the venues and stuff has to be. So it does take a lot of effort for the entire contest administration team. And as well as that, then we have to bring in the major championships that headquarters will produce. And obviously in past years, yes, it has been very, very good that we would have always known at least a year in advance when things were happening.
True.
So we were able to then make sure that our calendar fitted around that. And obviously now, because things are later in the day, it does cause a bit more of a challenge for Tisha, Alistair, Danielle, and others involved in that. Traditionally, as you say, I can speak from a branch perspective. I can also speak from a band member perspective. And I've been in pipe bands now since 2012 was my first season. You know, traditionally the All Ireland's is the first Saturday in July.
And
And I think that's always been the case over its more than 70-year history. I can stand corrected on that. I wasn't alive 70 years ago. So
stuff that Aaron got wrong. Yeah.
But you know, that finishes. And for us, I think even to contemplate through the JAC, that's the joint association council between the IPBA and the RSPBA and I branch, to even sort of move the All Irelands to a week later. That is not something that's ever been thought of, because traditionally across Ireland, north and south, you know, it does become sort of a holiday time, and things like that need to be considered. So, you know, that date is firmly locked as the first Saturday. We know as bands then, and we know as branch representatives, then we do usually get sort of that 2-week break before we would even be considering another contest. But again, just because there's no contest sort of 2 weeks later, that doesn't mean that certain bands may not be continuing to motor away. So where the 12th falls this year on a Saturday, if you've bands that have a band practice on a Wednesday or Thursday night, they may take the Wednesday after the All Irelands with the 12th over that weekend. Bank holiday will be on the Monday and possibly the Tuesday for certain people. Maybe back to your band practice on Wednesday night. Let's get a good 2 weeks practice in before the Scottish hits. And I know that, again, there's been some comments online, Rob, that I've read over the last 24 hours about, you know, only 5 bands from Northern Ireland went to the Scottish last year.
I was about to get into that. There's been a lot of commentary about that attendance from Northern Ireland bands.
It comes possibly down to holiday time.
You
know, people are taking holidays later and later. They may have other things. And just simply for pipe band leaders, it is becoming harder and harder to even lock your players in, because people, you know, when you were in a pipe band, I was always told you were in a pipe band, you didn't have a summer. Your summer was spent on grass every Saturday and you looked forward to it. But with so many people now, with differences in their jobs, with family commitments, schools, holidays are what
cost, it's finance, it's all those things,
everything together, and that's all having an impact. So from a Northern Ireland perspective, yes, maybe we didn't have as many bands as we would like going to Dumbarton that we've had in previous years. I mean, I've certainly been going to Dumbarton most years, even in grade 2.
It can work out expensive though for bands, and
the big one for us in Northern Ireland was always the trip to the north of Scotland, and Absolutely brilliant venue at Forres, wonderful venue at Inverness, Aberdeen, great venue. So I enjoyed that, but you are talking close to £300 odd per member out of their pocket
that adds
just
up.
to get there. And last year, certainly for us, it being that wee bit later before they announced the British Championships at Forres, we had to sort of scramble as a band to try and get ourselves up there. And I mean, I think I was in Forres. I think I was in the park for 2.5 hours. It was out of the car, get dressed,
Play and then go home.
play in the rain, absolutely drenched, get back, get into the car, and back down the road. Simply because to spend money on a hotel as well as the flights or the travel, and it's not really good. However, I understand that Scotland as a country is everything should not be just in the central belt. The Highland bagpipes come from up there. Let's celebrate that by going up there, and I do enjoy it. It is cost, as Alistair says, it's cost. With regards to the United Kingdom Championships, there was no firm date for that last year. There was another promoter, and then Alistair and the late John Hughes worked together and came sort of nearly at the 11th hour.
That's right. I remember talking about it at the time.
Simply to try and deliver that, and that because it was so late at the day. Yes, maybe the entry for that was down on previous years, but we still had, I think, over 75 bands participating that at Bangor on an absolutely glorious day of sunshine. And I think everybody that came from Scotland and further afield did enjoy the day. That's just where we're at. It is a major championship. It's not something that the RSPBA Northern Ireland branch, we don't host the majors.
No,
we look
for
after
HQ and the board to decide. Yeah.
It's a difficult situation. Look, and I think I have seen and I've read quite a few comments and different things over the last sort of 24 hours. I think people are asking why it's not happening in Northern Ireland. The simple reality is it's not happening in Northern Ireland because there's nowhere here has stepped up to the plate to put the money forward to actually bid for it. That's the reality. And we struggle from an NI branch point of view, and we're very thankful and we're very grateful for those councils and those different groups and those different bodies who come on board to actually, run these events and make them happen here in Northern Ireland. But there's another side to it as well. We within the pipe band world, we know the difference between a minor competition and a major championships. But see, to promoters or those who are putting up funding or finance,
it's difficult to get that across. Yeah, absolutely.
There's no difference. As far as they're concerned, they can put 40 pipe bands into a park for a local minor championships. It could be the County Antrim, could be a County Down, whatever the case may be, whatever area it's in, County Tyrone, whatever. They can put those in there. The difference between that and it being, the UK Championships or the British, they're not seeing the massive difference. Now, yes, and I know I've had conversations with another council, and yes, there would be an interest in a European Championships with some of our councils because they can see that certainly has a bigger ring to it and a bigger sound to it, and there's a bigger impact. So let's see what happens moving forward. But at this minute in time, the reality is there's none of our local councils have stepped up.
Yeah. No, there you go. So, I have to say, this, I don't know, it's bad news, I guess, in one regard, that Northern Ireland has now lost a major championship, and we are potentially, but not yet, but we are waiting to hear on the announcement of the 5th, we're potentially seeing all majors in Scotland, potentially. I keep saying that. But looking at the calendar that we have, this is the dates that we have seen announced so far. So we have the UK Championships on the 12th that we're talking about tonight, and that's in Edinburgh. The Scottish Championships, of course, 26th July in Dumbarton. Then we have the Euros in Perth. I'm not entirely sure where in Perth just yet. And that's on the 9th of August. And then, of course, we have the big one then, the Worlds then the following week. I hope you don't mind me saying this on a live stream with hundreds of people watching right now, but this does seem to be quite a compressed calendar. You're talking 4 majors here within pretty close proximity of each other.
Well, there's literally only 2 weeks between each one, and then you've got a week between the Europeans and the Worlds. And yes,
Yeah.
I fully understand the Europeans being that week before the Worlds because it does
Yes.
help for travelling bans, those that are coming from further
Oh,
afield,
absolutely. Yeah.
that they can take in two major championships. But equally, again, and this is something that I'm getting, and a message that I'm getting from our local Northern Ireland bands, is that it doesn't help them because that's literally two traveling weeks in a row, and it's
That's it.
getting
Yeah.
people from A to B and on to C.
And even for the
And then
likes
I
of
look
yourself,
that's and
getting
again
off
it's
work.
and look the pipe band world
Yeah.
is a lot bigger than just Northern Ireland, and
There you
I'm
go.
the first to say that. Although for
Yeah.
me, Northern Ireland's the centre of it from my world and from what we're
Yes.
doing.
Yes.
But yeah, it's a very compressed season. It's leaving me sitting at this minute in time, like potentially with the Northern Ireland calendar. We're currently sitting, provisionally, an indoor competition at the end of April. We're
I see.
sitting,
Yeah.
I'm saying all these things are potentially, but like they're there, they're going to happen. We
I
have a
see.
championship that's going to happen at the end of May.
Yeah.
Like
Oh,
that
brilliant.
is that competition at the end of May, and then the one that'll be the normal traditional one at the start of June. Like
Yes.
they're 4 or 5 weeks before even potentially the first major championships.
Yeah. There you are.
Whereas in the past, we always had that first major in May.
Yes.
So you always got
Yeah.
going a Saturday before it to get you started. Like that's been going on, Rob. We're around for
Long
a wee
time
while.
now.
We're a wee while
Foster,
longer
yeah.
around than what Erin is anyway.
Aye.
But you know, we know like that was always the tradition. There was always that major and
Yeah.
nearly always in May. Then there was one in June, and then it was July, and then it was August.
That was
That's
paced
the
out.
way
Yeah.
traditionally that has went. It sort of was a gradual thing. So you could build your season around all of that.
Yeah. And you
Whereas
had
at the
time.
minute,
Yeah.
you take all of our bands currently now, and if you think, even just purely from the grade one perspective, they're literally going to be going 12th of July. 2 weeks later, they're going to be in, Dumbarton. 2 weeks after that, they're going to be in
And Perth.
Perth,
Yeah.
and a week after that, the Words. There's nothing in between,
No, that's it. Yeah. And it's quite
because that Saturday
grueling,
in
I think.
between, trust me, they're not going to go to a local competition. I don't think.
Yeah.
I'm going to
No.
speak really on the basis of being in a band, playing. I want to play. That's first and foremost. That's why I'm in a band.
Yeah.
Placing all the major championships into a compacted 5 weeks. That is a massive, massive ask of bands.
Yeah, it is.
Because we also have to factor in the British Solo Drumming Championships.
Oh yeah,
Is
of
usually
course.
on Monday.
Never even
We
thought
also
about the solos
have
there. Yeah.
we also have a pre-Worlds concert. So whichever band is playing that,
All that work, yeah.
Glasgow, they've got that. So I mean, you're potentially talking for whatever band that is. They're playing maybe a band practice on a Thursday or Friday. They're playing Perth. They're maybe getting Sunday off, but journeying from the parts of Scotland down, towards
For
Glasgow.
piping live and all of that.
Starting, and again,
Yeah.
and again, I'm not just thinking about grade one bands here. I know most people think it, but I'm using it as an example. We have some of the top world class players for piping and drumming across this world who will be doing other things as part of piping live, which is effectively something they want to do, but it's for our enjoyment. We're there to witness that event. It's bringing in hundreds of people to the city of Glasgow, and that's why it's there. You've got the British Solo Drumming. You've then got this pre-Worlds concert, which happens each year, and it's a different grade one band picked forward. And then Thursday, there's Wednesday and Thursday, there's band practices at Kelvin Grove and all round at the Green. And then you're out there on Friday morning. I mean, we were on the Green last year at 8 o'clock.
Yeah.
And you
There you
didn't leave there until 6 o'clock. You went and got something to eat, went to bed, and you were back there again the next morning at 8:30. And you didn't get out of there until 9 o'clock. By the time you finish on Saturday, you think, I've done nothing but run around pipe bands for the last 9 days. And you're like, that's a massive ask. And the money aspect. Let's not forget, everything's getting dearer, but nobody's getting paid anything more.
No, there you go.
But also one of the points I just wanted to raise, that other people have been sort of saying online, why does it matter? Why are the Northern Ireland bands moaning about this
Yeah.
when they don't go anyway?
I'm seeing a lot of that.
Because
Yeah.
they didn't go to Forres. There was only 2 bands at Forres. We've already addressed that point. It's the distance. That has been the case in Forres since I can remember. It's the 2 or 3 Grade 1 bands from Northern Ireland that journey, because they're in that elite grade that has to they're challenging for that
The
prize.
big title. Yeah,
We
absolutely.
would have loved to have done it in Grade 2. We just couldn't afford it. But
Yeah.
we know in Closskelt we have to go. We have to be at these major championships. It's our bread and butter.
Yeah.
But, if we then put a major championship on the 12th of July, which we've done, we're definitely not going to get more than potentially 2 or 3 bands. Because, and let's not forget, Closskelt, Field Marshal Montgomery, Rivara are your 3 Grade 1 bands. You say they have to go to the major championships, they'll be at it. Well, we might have an intention as Closskelt to go. Field Marshal might be saying, yes, we're going. But then whenever your pipe major and leading drummer start looking who's not available, who has commitments with their private lodges within the Orange, who is already
a consideration,
who doesn't engage with the Orange parades, but knows that that's the local break, and that's when we bring it in Scotland. I have a lot of friends in Scotland. Obviously, we're all friends in the pipe band world. There's half of Scotland has their holidays booked to go to Spain because they know that that's the time that they are allowed off band practice. The break from the end of June, which was usually the European Championships of Forres, Aberdeen, that was that last week. We had the All Irelands, and then they had that 2-week break, but they were back to get a band practice in before Dumbarton.
There you go.
They're now having to change the plan. So it's not just a Northern Ireland issue, and I totally agree. I totally, I welcome from a band person's point of view that the board of directors have issued that statement. That is the most important thing, I think, to everybody.
I was really grateful for that, honestly. Yeah,
and that's great to see, and I'm very pleased to see that.
Yeah.
We're all in this together, so we all need to communicate. What we
Alistair,
need to look going forward.
Sorry, go ahead. Yeah,
do need to look at going forward, and it is positive to see that with that statement, future years, different dates, etc. That is good potential. And obviously as well, that most people should be aware, headquarters as an organization, part of this organization, they have already looked at their funding models. They knew that we had to change as an organization to go forward. They have been very vocal about that with appointing the new
fundraising officer. Yeah,
he comes with a wealth of experience. That can only be welcomed as a positive. And let's see how that goes. We're still in the early stages of that. So I'm not here to get at our RSPBA board, but I'm not here also to basically say that everything is great. I'm sort of 2 fences here, but I don't think it's fair to sort of people just to start gurning and saying, oh, you don't go anyway. It's like, well, maybe we don't, but let's try and work out how we can get bands to go. The more bands, the better.
I think the discussion here tonight on the live stream was trying to put across the gravity of this, and try to give an understanding as to why this was important. So I have to thank again to David Scott for joining us here at the start of the show and putting that across. But also Alistair and to Aaron as well. Thank you guys for joining us here, talking about, on behalf of the Northern Ireland branch. Alistair, I was going to ask you then, just before I let you both go, the All Ireland Championships, it's going to be quite a big one this year, yeah?
Yeah, look, we're delighted, in particular that we're getting to go back to the Northwest again as such. The last time it was there was 2013, so we're absolutely delighted that the executive office are on board with us for this, because it is the executive office that are on board to support the event in Ebrington Square. But equally with that, I'm working closely at the minute as well with Derry and Strabane Council, and we're hopeful that there will be some fringe events as well on the lead up to it.
I like that.
Oh yeah, we're going to have different events on the build up, and those will be happening. All being well, again, it's all subject to fund and getting final approvals and different things. But look, we're working closely. We have a plan in place. And it's, the week leading up to the All Ireland, there will be different events right across the council area.
Brilliant.
We hope to be starting on the morning of the All Ireland with the walls awakening in the city, if everything goes to plan, with the sound of pipes. So look, there's different things. We want to make it good. We want to make it an impact. And look, there's an interest. So that's the big thing, and that's what we're working on. Like, there's lots of other things, Rob. I'll certainly come back some other evening. We'll talk Northern Ireland purely and what we're doing within Northern Ireland for the season ahead. We can get that whenever we get into 2025. At the minute, I really should have had my Christmas jumper on and be enjoying myself. But look here, the importance of pipe bands, the importance of this decision has brought me on to this evening.
They are.
But look, we also have to look at it, and and I'm glad Aaron said what he did say there. In some ways, we do have to also appreciate that there are major championships happening, because you brought out a great hit song last Christmas.
I did,
Rob, when you didn't have any majors really on board. I think, or was it two? Was the name of the song?
Only two.
So I'm not sure what your sequel is for this year. Maybe you're going to release it the next day or two.
Who knows?
But so we are at that stage, and like there is work going on behind the scenes, but equally with that, there's also difficulties. There's always going to be difficulties.
Yeah. Oh, indeed. Well, again, Aaron, Alistair, thank you both so much for joining us on the show this week. I really do appreciate it. Your contribution was more than valuable.
I just lost my sound here.
See, no problem. Well, sure. I will see you both again. Thank you so much. Bye. There you are. Fantastic. Again, a huge thank you to Alistair Patterson, who unfortunately lost his sound there towards the end, and to Aaron McElwain as well for joining us, and also to David Scott, who joined us at the beginning of the stream as well, who gave us that sort of information about that date that everyone's talking about. So just a reminder of the dates again. We're talking about here tonight the UK Championships, the 12th of July in Edinburgh. And we have the Scottish then, 26th of July, Euros, 9th of August, and then we have the big one then, 15th and 16th of August. There you are. And if you do want more information on what we've been talking about there, about the All-Ireland Championships, that you can find information on the RSPBA NI's Facebook page, on their socials. They've been talking about it over there, so you can go and check that out. So, right, at this point, we haven't really got into any of the comments yet. So I know a lot of you have been commenting online. So please do drop in your comments. We do love to see them coming. So let me see, get a few of them up. Eilish, thanks for watching. There you go. Good stuff. So let me see. I see you back in your normal setting again, Rob. Yeah. See behind this fancy backdrop here, I'm actually redecorating. This place is a nightmare. It's an absolute mess. So yeah, I am back in my usual setting, which is good to be here. Let me see. Getting more messages coming in here. There's one from Adrian. It's not just the bands. A lot of drum majors attend all the majors. Yes, Adrian, that's a good point. Actually, David Scott mentioned that earlier about the drum majoring scene as well, and their need to attend major championships. Yes, absolutely. So I know we're talking about largely, the bands. Absolutely, it includes the drum majors in there too. So we are getting a wealth of comments in, actually. That's kind of flying through these here. Got one in here. Let me see. All right, this is me trying to get through comments here. All right. Do you know what? There's too many. But do you know what we're going to do? Is we are going to dedicate a proper podcast to this in the new year. All right. Now, we do have a lot of content planned for you over the course of the holidays. We've got some big interviews for you, of course. Even one on Christmas Day. I know. You think I get a day off. Yeah, we've got a great episode for you on Christmas Day, and we have another one for you on New Year's Day as well. So we've got a lot of great content to come. And please do, if you are watching us on YouTube, do hit the like button and subscribe to us if you haven't already, because we do have a wealth of other great content to bring you here on our YouTube channel. Everyone, thank you all for joining the conversation. Apologies, didn't get through to your messages here. There was just way too many of them here. There's greetings from the Pipe Band Museum. Hello to the Pipe Band Museum. How you doing? Right, let's fly on, I think. Thank you, everyone, for joining us on the stream tonight. Thank you all again to our guests for joining us, giving us their expert opinion. Really was a valuable conversation. And we'll hopefully see you all in the new year. Merry Christmas to each and every one of you, and a very happy new year. We'll see you all again.